Our first guest is the perfect example of triumph over adversity. Instead of continuing on a path of self-destruction, the founder of Focus is on a mission to reduce youth substance abuse and create community collaboration on account of her own life story, which we can't wait to tell you up next. I'm here today with Gwendolyn Bork, the founder and president of Focus, which is located out of Depew, New York. And I am so excited to be here with you to share your inspiring story, what you've been through in life, and what you're doing now to help youth right in our community. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So let's get started. Tell me your story.
I have an unbelievable story of tragedy to triumph. You know, when I was 15 at the time, I left home. I had lived a kind of a crazy life, moved around a lot, like every 6 months. So imagine like going into a new school every 6 months from really like first grade all the way until I was in high school. You know, raised by a single father, and we lived in poverty. It took a long time for my dad to get established. And, you know, by the time I was 15, it was just, there was a lot going on in my life, and I left home. And really by the time 18 rolled around, I was a senior of high school, and it was April of my senior year, and when the superintendent told me that I wasn't going to graduate, I pretty much had lost the very last strand of all hope that I was holding on to. You know, from 15 to 18, living on the streets and moving in and out of, you know, wherever I could live. Basically, at that point, I worked 2 jobs. I was doing whatever I could to stay in school. I had been raped multiple times. I had guns held at my head. I did whatever I could to try to stay in school, but on the same time, just coping with so much trauma and so much loss and innocence stolen from me that when that happened in April of my senior year, like I said, I went down into the darkest hole that I could possibly imagine. As far as like suicide, I had those suicidal thoughts. I wanted to commit suicide. I wanted to just not be a part of this life anymore. I just didn't know how to do it. And the only way that I really managed that was just drugs and alcohol. I lived a extremely dangerous life. June of that very same year, when I should have been graduating, I was actually pronounced dead at the scene of a car accident, right off the Delaware S curves, right by Forest Lawn Cemetery. You know, some people kind of joke around that day that when I had that car accident, there was a no vacancy sign because I went right through the Iron Cemetery fence, and that's when I was pronounced dead. So when the police and all the paramedics showed up, they found a dead person, and I heard all this stuff afterwards, but what I remember being, you know, in a very enclosed small space, and I believe I was in the ambulance, and there were like paramedics around me, and they were like, "Getting over here," and "Why are eyes so dilated?" And I remember them saying that. And I'm like, "What do you mean, why are my eyes so dilated? Like, if they're obviously looking into my eyes, like, why can't I see these people?" It's like somebody took their hand, even with the lights on, and just covered their eye, you know, covered my eyes with their hand, and I fell backwards into this deep, dark, black abyss. And I knew wherever I was, it wasn't good. I knew that there was something in the darkness that knew that I was there. Whatever it was coming to get me. And as I started like falling into this really deep, dark abyss, by the time I hit the bottom, this reality hit of, this is it, like I'm dead. And the minute that I succumbed to that reality, I saw right in front of me, you know, they talk about this in a lot of near-death experiences, like that movie screen. But it wasn't the review of my life. It was a movie screen where I was on one side and I was looking at another person. And on the other side, this person, that it was like watching a silent movie. The people started flickering in and out. And it was like another person, some people I'd recognize, and it just started speeding up. Like the frames of a movie in a movie theater, it started speeding up, and the people started interchanging and moving. And eventually I started realizing, like, this is an interaction. Some of these people I remembered, some of them I didn't, but there were hundreds of people that I had these interactions with, and it was a moment in time where they had come to me for a reason, and they were at a crossroads in their life. And it was up to me at that point in time to either steer them down the right direction and give them the words of affirmation, the things, the wisdom that they needed to get to the next place in life, their true destination. And instead of me giving that to them, and allowing that and allowing, my natural magnetism, my chemistry with people, this love and empathy that I had, instead of acknowledging that on account of my trauma and my anger, I was so angry and so mad at the world for what they did to me that I actually told these people, you just do you, don't worry about anybody else, look out for yourself. And out of that anger and hatred for the people who wronged me, that advice ultimately led them into a path of destruction. And they all died because of me. And so like in that moment, I could see my hands like surgeons getting ready for surgery. And as I'm watching this movie, I could see, and I see this, and more of these people are interchanging, and I could see blood starting to form, like from the tips of my fingers down through my forearms and starting to drip off my elbows. It was at that moment that my heart broke. Out of multiple times that I had been raped. I had been raped by multiple people at one time. Like I said, I've gone through tons of domestic violence, gun violence, gang violence. Like, that hurt, but nothing hurt worse in that moment than knowing that I had an opportunity to make a difference, to make things right with them and to do things right with them. And I completely took advantage of it, and I lost that opportunity. And it broke my heart. And in that moment, I was an atheist. I didn't believe in anything. I was into science. And in that moment, I was like, there is no way that I'm going to be able to endure this for the rest of my life, to see this. You have those thoughts of like hell, and is this going to be my eternity, right? And in that moment, I just threw out a Hail Mary, and I was like, God, please help me. And in that moment, this light turned on way up in the distance, like this spotlight, and it came right next to me, and it was like just big enough for me to like step into it. And the moment I stepped like into that spotlight, I felt love for the first time in my life at 18 years old. Pure love, pure comfort, peace, belonging, security, everything that I looked for in sex and drugs and, just adrenaline-seeking type of behavior. I felt it for the first time. I closed my eyes and I felt home for the first time in my life. And that's when he talked to me. He was like, Gwen, what are you doing? And when he said my name, there was absolutely no doubt, like, this is God, And he's like, Gwen, what are you doing? Like, you knew you were there for a reason. You knew you were there for a reason. And now you have to go through the physical pain in order to get back to where you're supposed to. So when he said physical pain, I'm like, okay. And he showed me 2 quick flashes of a red car that was completely smashed. And I had a red Ford Escort at the time. And I looked at it, and you look at it real quick, and you're like, what? So all I could tell, it was a ball of metal. You couldn't tell from the front, from the back, the top, from the bottom. It was completely smashed. And once I saw that, I was like, yeah, I don't know if I could do that. I'm thinking, like, I'm a tough girl. I can handle anything. I was physically, I was a soldier. But when I seen that, I really didn't know if I could handle it. And I kind of fought with him a little bit. I'm like, yeah, no, I can't do that. And he's like, you're gonna have to. Like, you have to go back. You're there for a reason. When I opened my eyes, I could see what was in the darkness and surrounding me, where, just, I don't even know how to describe it other than the movies do a really good job with zombies and demons, but just really drawn out faces, these people that were just salivating at the mouth trying to get me. But as long as I was in that light, they couldn't. And they were as far deep into that darkness until the light vanished. And that was the last memory that I had until I woke up, like God sent me back. I'm getting wheeled into the ICU at ECMC. First is my mom, who I hadn't seen in a while. And she's like, Gwen, you've been in a bad car accident. I'm like, okay. So that's where those pictures, that's what that just happened. All of this is real, and this is happening right now. She's like, you've been in a bad car accident, like, you gotta be strong. And then I'm stopped. I'm stationary in the operating room. I hear my dad. My dad was, a captain in the Army. He ended up becoming a police officer. And he goes, Gwen, you've been in a bad car accident. He's like, and you need to fight. He's like, and I mean fight harder than you've ever fought before. You're not going to make it. When my dad said that, I knew that this was life or death, that this was very, very serious. And that was like somebody took the hourglass and just flipped it around. And I knew that this is the beginning. And I fought for my life for 2 weeks in the ICU. My nose was completely, half of my face was demolished. They brought in a team of doctors to put my face back together. They used my license out of my back pocket to reconstruct my face. my wrist and my hand and my arm broke in 14 places. They put 8 screws like going through my wrist and my arm. I broke 2 of my left ribs that punctured my left lung. I broke a bunch of bones off in my right ankle. My voice box actually rotated 180 degrees from the impact. And they just got me. They took my spleen out, my gallbladder out, a section of my large intestines. And, when a month later, I did not walk out of that hospital room, I actually wheeled out.
This is just the story. I mean, I would never want you to go through something like that or experiencing anything like that, but knowing what you do now, do you feel grateful for having that experience?
1,000%. I tell people this story and they're like, I'm so sorry that happened to you. And I'm like, you know what? I'm thankful because through that experience, my lack of forgiveness, the identity that the world gave me destroyed me. So that was a resurrection, a new resurrection of an identity for me that, going into full speed, being a musician, which I'm still a musician to this day, and becoming a recording artist, which I did end up getting independently published, but I became a published author, started speaking, started I created another not-for-profit in addiction recovery, and it was just step by step by step, where am I supposed to be? And it ended really right 5 years ago with the beginning of Focus, and that was working with youth and addiction prevention.
And all you've been through, and you can relate to these teens and what they're going through because you went through it yourself. I mean, how do you take what you've been through and help teens?
I think being in this position is a huge opportunity for me to be able to help teens. So, working with 2 school districts, Depew and Lancaster Central School Districts, I have the opportunity to obviously engage with these kids. I do outreach events. We work with them all the time. So aside from that, I have an ability to create a community that supports them, that fills in the gap for, their need to feel that their voices are being heard, that they're being supported, that there's resources and support for them. And then, just telling my story. I go into Depew High School and I get the pleasure and the honor of telling the students my story. And I tell them, this is the fight of your life. I had to fight, from really 14 to 24 years old, a decade of darkness to go from the darkness to find the light. I explained to them that this is where I'm at now. And if I can do it, you can do it. What's happening right now with your parents, or what's happening with the losses of loved ones, maybe you've lost, people to addiction, or, your parents are gone, you're living with your grandparents, or you're living in, food scarcity, and whatever is happening and whatever's going on in your life, it's a moment in time, and it does not define who you are. So if I can provide any type of hope, any type of inspiration to these youth to just not give up and persevere, that is 1,000% my objective.
So, Gwendolyn, what do you hope to accomplish with Focus? What does the future of Focus look like for you?
So Focus for our community unity and support, the objective of our organization is to create community level change. So the goal would be to create a drug-free community where by utilizing the 12 sectors of our community, and those range from education, media, government, law enforcement, parents, youth, health-serving organizations, addiction prevention organizations, by all of us working together, we're more or less standing in the gap for youth, meet them where they're at, to be able to give them an opportunity to be able to live a life that has healthy coping mechanisms, where they have opportunities to find who they are and to be able to be the next leaders and ultimately, entrepreneurs and whoever it is that they are meant to be in this world.
And it's a beautiful thing what you do. And basically you're letting these kids know that what you're going through does not define you. You have a bigger purpose than that. And that's what you have. You had a bigger purpose, and you did everything you could to really just have the beautiful person in you come out and help others. And for that, I'm so grateful to know you.
Right on. I'm happy to be here in this world.
I am too, my friend.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for all you do at Focus and to help the kids in Depew. And thank you for joining me on the Sweet Buffalo Show today.
Thank you.
For more information on Focus, visit forourcommunitytoday.org.